Hey guys, Brian here with Better Chess Training, and today I want to show you an endgame position from one of my games. It's very instructive in terms of looking at endgame strategy and a few important endgame concepts. So hopefully you will learn something as well as I did from analyzing this game. Okay, I'm playing white in this game, and let's take a look here. And I decided to go into the bishop endgame here. And let's take a look at this before we move on. Material is even. Both sides have 6 pawns and a bishop, as well as the king. There is, as you can notice, the position's very asymmetrical. White has a protected pass pawn here on e5, and black has these two pass pawns on the queen side. So that starts to tell us what each side's win condition is, okay, in this. Actually, I think just from analyzing this that this position is probably fairly even, but maybe black has a little bit more of an edge with this here, and also this pawn is fairly weak. However, it is far advanced, and if so he has to mind that as well. When we're looking at this, we should come up with a plan, and basically black's plan is to bring his king over, I think, and advance these pawns, while my plan would be both to stop his plan as well as looking for opportunities to advance my pawn and improve my bishop. However, one of the most important principles in most endgames is to activate the king, as opposed to the middle game and in the opening where we want to keep the king safe. With less material on the board and less threats for checkmate, we want to get that king active. So both of us do this in this game. By the way, my opponent is rated around 1800, around the same rating as I am. And here I play king to f2. My opponent plays king to e6. I play king to e2, king to d5, and king to d3. Now, here my opponent pushes me back here with c4 check. Actually, doesn't push me back, but he advances his pawn. I play king to c3. I was thinking something like b5 would have been interesting for him, or strong for him. But instead, he played king to c5. And now his plan is fairly clear. He's going to go after this pawn. This does allow me the opportunity, though, to get this bishop to a3 check in. And the point here is not just to check the king. Obviously, I'm not going to be checkmating him here anytime soon, but it's to get this bishop in on this diagonal where I can penetrate into his position. So that's why I did that. Now, my opponent plays king to b5, obviously going after this pawn. And this ends up being a problem. And I want to take a little bit of time just to explain it a little. If we look at this position, and when you're looking at your positions in the endgame, when you're looking at strategy, what you want to think about is how can my opponent win? Especially if we're in a fairly even position. How can I lose this game? And really, the main way that black can lose this game is for me to advance my e-pawn and promote it, or force him to lose material. So king to b5, the problem with it from that perspective is that he's moving his king further away from the e-file. So with that in mind, what do you think he should have done? He could have played something like king to d5. And the idea here is that now this pawn will never move. Now, he is giving up this pawn, but he's doing a couple other things too. He's protecting the c pawn here, which is his most advanced pawn, and also maybe thinking about playing something like king to b5. So remember, this position is fairly even. So when you're one of the mistakes I know I make sometimes, and I think other amateur players make, and masters too, is making the wrong assessment. They try too hard to win a game that's really drawn. And when the game is drawn, especially when even if it's unbalanced like this one, you really want to avoid making mistakes that will just allow your opponent to win easier. And so in this case, if my opponent played king to d5, he basically admits that he also believes it's a draw, and is neither side could really make progress in this particular situation. Let me just give you an example. For example, when I was analyzing this, I thought, well, maybe I can just get my bishop behind here and take this pawn. And really, that goes nowhere after b5, bishop to b8, and bishop to b6. And now it's actually black that would have the advantage here. He's attacking this weak pawn, and he's got these two pawns rolling. So let's go back to the game. He did play king to b5, and the reason why this is a mistake is that it allows my bishop now to get in here, as well as potentially advancing this pawn. I did play e6. This actually wasn't the best move and leads to a drawing position. But let me show you what I could have played. Again, from a strategic point of view or from principles point of view, what I could have done was played bishop to f8, attacking his weaknesses. And now the point here is not that I'm necessarily going to win material, although here I can win a pawn, but the point is that I am forcing my opponent to make moves that will eventually put him in a position that is advantageous for me. For example, let's see he protects this pawn here with g6. Now I could go ahead and take this pawn, and it would probably lead to a slight edge, but the problem with this is that black can play something like bishop to e7. And now if we notice, I am a pawn up, but now his bishop is a little more active, and my bishop can't really get back into the game because my own pawn is blocking at the moment. If I were to advance this pawn, for example, if I were to play king to e6, he could even do something like bishop to f7 check, and after I back my king up, he could bring his king back to attack this pawn. Again, might be okay for me, might even be better for me, but there's an even better move here. It's a subtle move, but it's a concept here I want you to understand. In the end game, a lot of times, the ability, things need to be very precise with the king positions, with the position of the pawns. And this is maybe something I wouldn't have found in the game, but obviously with analysis I was able to find it, and it will alert me to these opportunities. And that would be to make a quiet move here like g3. The idea here is that if I can force a position where these pawns are locked and he can't make any moves with these pawns, and he's forced to make a move with the king or the bishop, it gives me an advantage. I'm going to show you how that works. Let's say this pawn is attacked, so let's say he plays h5, then I play h4. Okay, and in this particular position, black is in Zugzwang because he can't move any of his pawns, and any move he makes with the ideas are, if he moves the king or the bishop, it's going to worsen his position. So let me give you a couple examples. Let's say he wants to keep his king here, or let's say he tries to retreat his king to protect against this promotion threat. Then my king comes in with king takes c4. I'm winning a pawn here. And then let's say he tries to advance this pawn, b5 check. Well, I can simply sidestep here, and I don't need to blockade it with the king because my bishop is here. I can stay in support of this pawn. Let's say he plays a check here to push my king back. That's fine. After bishop to c7, then again I just can play something like e4, which just improves my position. I'm either going to get my king in, or I'm going to make his pawns even weaker than they are. Okay, so let's go back here. If for example, he tries to take this pawn, then king takes c4. Again, I'm winning a pawn. Now he does have these two pass pawns, but because his king is out of position, let's say he plays king to b5 check. Again, I play king to d5 here, supporting this advance as well as keeping in range of this pawn, so it can't advance. It brings his king back. I go ahead and advance my pawns. Let's see, and his king is not in time here. I can go ahead and play here. He has to sacrifice his, actually, in this particular position, yeah, he has to sacrifice his bishop because I'll just take here. I'm sorry. King to d8, and I would take it, and then my bishop would be able to stop these pawns. Or if he sacrifices his bishop, then in this particular position, the bishop can stop the two pawns here. So that is winning for white as well. And then finally, let's go back one more time. If he tries to prevent his king from moving by playing something like bishop to c7, then I can advance the pawn. King to c6, e7, and then go ahead and play king takes c4. And then my king is going to get in here on the... This king can never move, or I mean it could blockade, but my king will be able to get in and wreak havoc on black's position. So that will be winning as well. So going back here, just to summarize, bishop to f8 would be the move here, taking the initiative, attacking his pawns, and eventually forcing black into a Zugzwang position. But let's go back to the game, because that's the ending there was fairly interesting as well. Okay, back to the game position. I did play e6, and here my opponent plays bishop to f6 check, which is probably the best move, pushing my king back to c2. And now he plays king to c6. This is the best move, an excellent move. And I actually make a mistake here, g4. And my thought here was to deflect this and then play e4. And then after, and then to be able to push his king back. The problem here is that he could play g6. And it prevents me from, or at least it makes it a little tougher here. After f5, g takes f5, e takes f5, he can play h5. Now he has the ability to create a pass pawn here, and my bishop, or his bishop, combined with his king, will be able to stop my pawns in the center. After I play something like bishop to c1, the idea to get my bishop over to stop these pawns, h4, bishop to f4, then the problem is I have too many threats here, or he has too many threats for me. Now he's got these queenside pawns. So this would actually be losing for me, and that's probably what he should have played. But instead, he played g6, playing defensively, and this gives me, actually, again, this position probably fairly even, but now I realize I need to play actively. I play bishop to f8, and he plays h5, and actually he could have taken here again, but he didn't. He plays h5, and here this allows me to play g5, driving this bishop back. He plays bishop to d8, and now I'm able to win his bishop. Okay, so before we move any further, let's look at what he could have done. And what I analyzed, he could have played something like bishop to a1. And what this does is it keeps his bishop from having to sacrifice itself right away. Because if I play e7 right away, he can play king to d7. And if I attack this bishop, then he simply runs away. And it's difficult for me to do much. If I come back to c2, for example, now his queenside pawns are rolling. And remember, my bishop is blocked here. If I do anything to move this bishop, he's just going to grab this pawn. So this is fairly even. The key for me would be to, basically mark time. I mean, I could even sacrifice this pawn to bring my bishop back, but there's not really any progress that I can make, and I think it'd be difficult for him to make progress as well. Okay, going back here. So advancing the pawn would be a mistake. However, what I could do is play something like bishop to b4. And the idea behind this move is, for example, if he were to just say move his king to kind of bring it around here, then I can just take my time. And let's say he brings it in front here. Then, again, I don't really have to do anything. I just play here. Because he can't get in front of this. And if he plays something like king to e8, now basically I could hold him in place, or at this point I can advance, attack his pawn here. Okay, so again, it's sort of another Zugzwang type position where so moving his king would be bad, and he could shuffle back and forth, for example, with his bishop. But the idea here is, now I can play e7, play king to d7, and then a nice little touch here would be bishop to d6. If he takes the bishop, of course, I promote here, which wins. And if he, for example, just blockades, then I'm going to win the pawns over here. So this is winning as well. Now, how do you find a position like bishop to b4? Again, it's the concept of sometimes in endgames you need to kind of make waiting moves or moves that you can't always just say, okay, I'm going to directly go forward with my plan. Sometimes timing is very essential in this. So making a move like king to b4, or I'm sorry, bishop to b4, prevents him from doing. Remember, he can't really do too much. Anything he does in terms of advancing, say, the h pawn, just makes it weak and something I can grab. Bringing the bishop back here does something useful in that it kind of protects here against any of his pawn advances. And black is always has to be concerned with defending against this promotion. So his king cannot really support here. So that's the idea behind that. Okay, let's go back to the game. He played bishop to d8, and I play e7 now, because now it's attacking. He doesn't have time to bring his king back. He has to sacrifice, and he plays b5. I play bishop to b4, stopping any advance. King to b6. Now I bring my king in. King takes a6. I play king to d4, and my idea here is to maybe go after these pawns or just centralize my king. I think we're both running a little lower on time here. King to b6, and now I want you to maybe pause the video or think, what would you play next? Okay, well, I hope you took a moment to look at that. And this is actually, I've never really had too many chances to do this, is to play a sacrificial combination. E4. And the whole point here is that f takes e4, and now f5. So you notice here his king is too far away to stop me. If he plays g takes f5, then the g pawn is going to promote. So he did not play that. What he did do instead was he played e3. So deflecting my king, not really a big deal. And now he plays a5. So he's trying to promote here as well. And I think what I could have done here was played something like bishop takes a5 check, and then after king takes a5, played something like this and promote. But in the game, and again, I'm a little low on time, so this may not be the best move, I play f6. Okay, because now he can't stop me from promoting. He takes my bishop, f7, b8, f8 equals queen. And I could say that I went on to win the game, which I did. But let me just show you just a couple moves just to show you how I did that. And don't worry, we won't go to the painful end. But he brought his king back, and I played queen to a3 check. The whole point here is that to prevent his king from supporting his pawns. After king to b6, I play queen to b4. And this totally stops his queenside play. King to c6, king to e4, preventing him from moving any further. King to b6. And now I just am going to go after his pawns. King to c6, king to f6. Remember, my queen is stopping these pawns. King to d5. And then here I can win a pawn. And from here, we played another 15 moves or so. But I won't. I think the point is made with the queen and taking the rest of these pawns. I'm going to win fairly easily. Okay, so I hope you were able to follow that. I had kind of I didn't show you all of the analysis I did because I think that would be very confusing. But what I wanted to do was illustrate a few concepts, including the idea of Zugzwang in the endgame, the importance of king position, centralizing that king, and we saw that how when black played king to b5, and this idea of understanding your winning conditions. So even if the position is theoretically drawn, you have to understand how can you win, how can your opponent win, and if the position is drawn, all you really have to do is prevent your opponent from fulfilling his win conditions. Okay, so that's a term. I'm not sure if it's used in chess very much, but it's used in other games. understanding how you can win, understanding how your opponent could win, and making sure that you do both to promote your win conditions and to prevent your opponent's win conditions. Hey guys, thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please press that like button. And also, I really enjoyed sharing this game of mine with yours. I know I made a few mistakes in there, but I think the analysis and learning from those mistakes were instructive. I think this game contained a lot of key endgame principles, and I hope you learned from that as well. But leave a comment, let me know what you thought, and I will see you next time. Good luck with your chess.